Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the interview room. We're going to give folks a little extra time to get in. Apparently, there's some glitches going on. If you can let me know if you can hear me, that would be awesome.
But I will make you forget all your sorrows. Let go like there's no tomorrow. Let's have a drink, just relax. All your problems will fade. If you're ready for a good time, count on me. There's a party in the backyard, dance your problems away. I'm all about the good
Bob is in the house.
I know you're all about the good vibes. Do you know how much I love you? Want to see you smile.
We're going to give a little extra time tonight because of this glitch.
I can tell that you have something on your mind right now. But I will make you forget all your sorrows. Let go like there's no tomorrow.
Hi, Julie.
Just relax, all your problems will fade. If you're ready for a good
Thank you, Chunky.
There's a party in the backyard, dance your problems away.
Yabba dabba doo.
All about the good vibes.
No.
All about the good vibes. We are all about the good vibes.
Welcome, mods.
We are all about the good times. Dance until it feels alright.
Messed up in Denmark. Yeah, we're going to work through this.
All about the good vibes. I will make you forget all your sorrows. Let go like there's no tomorrow. Let's have a drink, just relax. All your problems will fade. If you're ready for a good time, count on me. There's a party in the backyard, dance your problems away. I'm all about the good vibes. I know you're all about the good vibes. Let's have a drink, just relax. All your problems will fade. If you're ready for a good time, count on me. There's a party in the backyard, dance your problems away. I'm all about the good vibes. I know you're all about the good vibes. We are all about the good
Man, oh man, what
We are all about the good.
what a day.
Dance until it feels alright.
Did you guys feel like me and Karen and probably Bob and Gary will be here. John's tied up tonight, and Mike is on a cruise. That lucky dog. But Gary will be here. He's with patients right now. He's almost done, and then he's going to jump in. But do you guys feel like, remember the old picture of the dog just running, chasing his tail and just spinning? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Hey, I mean, just running around. Oh my gosh. It's almost crazy. Almost crazy.
You
Bob,
know what this reminds me of is the O.J. Simpson case in the early days when right after they named him as a suspect, and we had the car chase and all of that, and then all the craziness at his house. That's kind of what this case reminds me of. And then we got into the trial, months later, and what a fiasco that was. And this case has really been right up there with OJ in my book in terms of the crazy stuff that has gone on and hasn't gone on. So,
yeah, I understand that position for sure, and what a great analogy. What a great analogy. So here's our lineup tonight, everybody. Here's where we're going to go. And if you're just joining with us, like I said, Gary's going to be here in a little bit. He's out talking to patients, doing his thing. And so where we're going to go tonight, we're going to talk about the DNA. We're going to talk about the investigative, how we think it's moving. And we also are going to show the last interview here, the most recent interview with the sheriff. We're going to talk about the investigators back at the house. We're also going to go back to the house and why we're going to go back to the house. And I think this whole case has been absolutely, I'm going to use the word interesting because, let's figure this out, right? We've had pizza delivered to the front door. We've had a gardener show up. We had a pool man decide to, do his thing. We just had a couple of guys show up yesterday, and we had two more investigators show up today from the sheriff's department because you could see their badges. They were stars. They weren't FBI badges. So Pima County Sheriff's Department came back today and, got up on the ladder and looked at the devices on the corners of the house from Nancy's house as well as the neighbors. Bob, what are you waiting for? What do you think is going to pull up next to this house?
Let me Julie commented, let me just answer this real quick. So she's asking if this case will ever be solved. And I believe that it will, Julie. It's going to take some time, like we talked about in the last show. We're not as far along as I would hope to be, and I think everybody feels pretty much the same way in that regard. But it's going to be solved, and the sheriff's office and the FBI agents that are on the ground there doing the grunt work, the gumshoes, if you will, that are out there pounding the pavement, they're going to solve this case, regardless of. You can just filter out all of the blather that is coming out of the media and some other people, and even if the upper echelons are still having some little tiffs, this is going to be solved. I'm confident of it. So,
yeah, I would second that. But we're still waiting, as Bob said before we got up here. We're waiting for an ice cream truck to pull up.
Yeah, I expect the good humor man to come driving by anytime. Stop right in front of Nancy's house and start doling out the ice cream cones. One scoop or two.
Because we've never seen anything like this. And we've worked some crazy stuff, man. Worked some crazy stuff. All right, so let's talk about the DNA. Bob, we've heard mixed things, right? We've got DNA in the house. We've got DNA out of the house. At first we heard, the blood DNA was positively identified and that there was other DNA they were waiting for that had been sent off. I said that like the second day after this happened when the sheriff had said it. Sounds like that DNA came back and we've got no match. No hits anywhere in CODIS. Okay. Explain a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, why that possibly could be.
Well, CODIS, so certain states have a mandatory CODIS swab when you are arrested for certain crimes. And I'll give you a firsthand example of this. In 1987, I had a murder in Carlsbad, California that I worked, and it was involving a young lady that had been abducted after she stepped off a city bus in Carlsbad. She was dragged up into some bushes. She was raped. She was robbed. She was strangled. And in 1987, we really didn't have a good handle. We didn't have forensic DNA. We couldn't use it in law enforcement yet. But in the coming years, we could. And when I went to the autopsy on that case, and I knew we had DNA. So over the years, I called back down. After I left the department, I called back down and asked them to submit it eventually into CODIS. The first submission was, there was no hit. And then just about, let's see, it was 2021, right in the height of COVID, actually. So it was it was late 20. I get a call from my former department saying, hey, you remember this case you worked in 1987? We have a CODIS hit on it. So come to find out, the person we got the hit on had been arrested in Poway, California for a drug and a gun charge. And those type of charges in California require at booking, when he was arrested for those charges, at booking, San Diego Sheriff's took a swab of his mouth, a cheek swab, submitted it. Eventually it was worked up, submitted into CODIS, and then he was eventually arrested for the murder. And we convicted him. I had to go back down and testify in North County, San Diego court on that case, and we convicted him of all of those charges I just mentioned, including homicide. So that's the best example I can give you at the moment. Now, there are other ways people can get into CODIS, and really it comes down to the FBI whether or not they want to submit it or not. And there's parameters. They don't just willy-nilly submit people into CODIS. There are definitely parameters, and they have it nailed down pretty well. But that's the most likely way someone is going to be, their DNA is going to be in the database, is through an arrest.
And so don't anybody panic yet in terms of one of the things Bob and I want to hopefully project here tonight is a level of calm. This is a huge storm. These types of cases are huge storms, but the investigators should just be level set and moving very succinctly. So the first thing we're going to tee up tonight is we're going to show you the most recent interview that the sheriff just gave a little bit ago. And we'll go ahead and see what this guy, I haven't watched this yet, but what the sheriff is going to say and how he says it. And then we'll react to it.
Sheriff Chris Nanos, I know you're giving us limited time, and I appreciate.
Okay, first of all, can everybody hear that? Did everybody hear that coming in? I just want to make sure we got sound out there, that there's not a glitch in YouTube right now. Okay. Yes. Okay, I see yes is coming up. Okay, got it. Here we go.
That with this investigation so fluid, but I want to go back a little bit early on. You said your gut told you that Nancy was taken from her home and that she is still alive at that time. What does your gut tell you now about the entry to the home? And was there forced entry, or did she know the person that took her? What do you think now?
Okay, so I'm not going to get into the entry of the home or forced entry or any of that. What I'll tell you is I believe, just as I had initially, that Nancy was removed from that home against her will.
Okay, first thing right off the bat, Bob, do you find it very interesting that he does not want to get into forced entry or entry into the home, quote, or anything like that?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. There's something about the entry that he doesn't want to divulge, and so he's not. So, and that's probably the right thing. If I know everybody wants to know, but that may be something that they're holding close to their vests, and I'm sure it's appropriate.
She was kidnapped, and we still believe that.
How do you piece together the 40 minutes inside that home, after the doorbell camera disconnected? I mean, really, no idea still?
There's all kinds of thinking on that and theories. And to be honest, you don't want the sheriff's theories.
Yeah.
You want the investigators, because they're the ones who actually physically know the evidence, what they've collected, gathered, that crime scene. They were there. They're doing all the interviews. I have a team of young men and women who do this every day. I hear the pundits that, oh, the crime scene should have been done, should have been held longer. Look, this team of mine has done this type of investigation, homicides, for example, for decades. They have one of the highest solvency clearance rates in the country. Sometimes they get that case that you think will never be solved done in a day. They're very good. They're very well trained. They know what they're doing. I don't go and tell them, okay, we've been here long enough, let's go home. They spent over 20 hours at that scene processing it. They, along with forensic techs who are trained, process these things. Then they decide that they're done. They came here with all of their evidence. Some of the evidence we gave to the FBI. Why did we do that? Well, because we
Okay, we're going to stop right there for a minute. And this is a great comment. He just implied this is a homicide case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we agree with you. That is a great catch. Bob, we heard from the POA chairman and a former homicide guy that just retired recently. I think Brian Enton has interviewed him a couple times. What say you about that comment?
Yeah. If you're referring, are you talking about the homicide comment or the interviews? Yeah, the experience. I'm not so much in the camp that some people are with respect to the tenure of the homicide detectives. And the reason I say that is not everyone working this case has to be a 15 or 20-year veteran. Now, I understand that you want to have a good mix of veteran homicide detectives and maybe some young bloods, but and it doesn't sound like Pima County has a bunch of veteran homicide detectives that have stuck around and are still on the sheriff's department. But I'm fairly confident that there are at least some, and I guarantee you that there is some veteran investigators from the FBI that are working hand in hand with these detectives, and that they're providing hopefully some leadership and wisdom when it comes to this case and how to go forward with it. Some people have said that Pima County is small and it's a small town sheriff and yada, yada, yada. I don't really think that's the case. That is not what resonates with me. Now, it's been a long time since I've been to Tucson, but Tucson, the city of Tucson alone, is over 500,000 people. I think it's about 550,000 in population. This sheriff has 600 sworn deputies and an entire staff of somewhere in the area of 1,500. It's a huge county. It's almost 10,000 square miles. And even though their patrol work and their investigative work is not in the city of Tucson, it is definitely in the surrounding suburbs. It's in the unincorporated areas of the county. And I have no doubt that these deputies and these detectives have a lot more experience than what we're giving them credit for. So I'm not in that camp of trying to poke holes at this sheriff for having a young staff. There's plenty of other things to poke holes at, but not the tenure of his detectives. And, of course, I don't know for sure, but having done this for a couple of years, I think I'm pretty close to being accurate with those statements.
Yeah. So let's go back here for a moment. And by the way, Bob and I, for the record tonight, for this evening, we're going to stay right down the middle because we are neutral. We're going to support the FBI. We're going to support the sheriff, even though we see mistakes in our opinions based on our own practical, experiences actually doing the job. And so I'm not going to hammer this guy. There will be some things I'm sure that will drive me crazy, just like Bob. But what we talked about the other night, we just want what's best for Nancy Guthrie right now. And when the dust settles, then we'll do a show and say, holy crap, did you see that? Or what were the pluses? What were the minuses? Because that really is how it should be done right now, because all this other noise is getting in the way of maybe, appropriately trying to get the individual that's done this. So just for the record tonight, and I know that our chat understands that, and all of our subscribers down here. Turn down my bass. It sounds like crap. Yeah, I can't do that because it's not my bass. It's a YouTube thing right now. And you're right. And man, I hope I don't sound like crap. What does crap sound like?
That's a loaded question.
I took it back.
They, along with forensic techs who are trained, process these things. Then they decide that they're done. They came here with all of their evidence. Some of the evidence we gave to the FBI. Why did we do that? Well, because we know the FBI is good with certain pieces of evidence. They have the technological skills to deal with things like cameras and phones and different things. And we handed that to them. Ransom notes, gave them to the FBI. We use a lab that we've used again for decades for DNA. We submitted all of our biological evidence to that lab.
And you stand by that lab. I mean, was there any pushback by the FBI on that
No,
decision?
absolutely not. No, in fact, that's the point is FBI, the reason the FBI was part of this investigation immediately is we have members of our organization working with the FBI assigned to their building and have for decades. And they're the same here. So they were never not a part of this investigation. They were always a part of it. And to suggest that the sheriff blocked evidence, that's just crazy. We processed that scene. We went out and did a search warrant in Rio Rico, processed that scene, and the FBI found a glove. Hey, Sheriff, we're going to send this to Quantico and we'll check on DNA. I said, well, why do that? All of our DNA, all of it is at our lab. We'll just send it to ours. They said, makes sense. Thanks, Sheriff. That quick. There's no argument or discussion. It's just about keeping your evidence together. Let one lab deal with it. But that's not a slap at the lab we used or the lab the FBI used. FBI, we've used their labs before. They're very good. Our lab is very good. So there was never a discussion about the sheriff blocking evidence and not getting on with the FBI. We've always had a great working relationship.
What have we learned now about the glove, the DNA profile on that glove
came back, I think, either late last night or early this morning. The DNA came back. It was submitted into CODIS, and we have no hits in CODIS.
I mean, this was a key piece of evidence. A lot of people, the public waiting for that answer. Now, what's next? Do you go the genetic genealogy route?
Well, absolutely, you do that. But we have other DNA evidence from the scene that is more critical to me than something found 2 miles away.
Okay, that's a big point right there. He's got stuff at the scene that is more critical to him than stuff that's found 2 miles away. And quite frankly, that makes sense because when they did that canvas, they turned up, 16 other gloves or something to that effect, whatever that number was, crazy amount of gloves. And we explained that the other day. But
And they said it was many of those gloves came from the searchers, the search and rescue, apparently. So they've said that.
Yeah. So you nailed that piece of the puzzle. And now here's what I think unfortunately is happening is there is this other DNA now that they have in the crime scene. He's not going to talk about that, but he's definitely operating in his mind. That's the critical piece of evidence. And which leads us to think, okay, what's going on then with the interior of that house? And we're going to break that down here in a little while, and why Bob, myself, and others that we've been talking about this behind the scenes think that's going to be the golden egg. That's going to solve this problem here. And I think he's operating from the I got to be careful how I say this, from the position that she could be gone right now. And so he's crossing his T's and dotting his I's just in case that's the case. And best case is she is still with us, and he's going to maintain that hope, probably, in a public persona for the family. But I think simultaneously he's probably sat down with Savannah. He's probably sat down with the brother, maybe the other family members, and has told them, look, statistically, our experiences, et cetera, the numbers are going down by the day. Okay? That's just reality in the world and in criminal behavior.
All of that, though, will still be submitted for further analysis. That's, you take
all of that. So he's got more than just a little. He's got some things going on in that house that they're holding very close to the vest, and rightfully so at this juncture.
take a fingerprint and you hope to match it right away. But that's not that easy. You have to have so many points of characteristics that match on that fingerprint. DNA is no different. You have to have the DNA, have to have so many hits of lodi to make a comparative match. All of those things. Sometimes DNA is mixed. We have DNA from that scene that is a mixture of DNAs. So we have to separate.
That's not good. Because that means it could be fluids of some sort. And remember, we go back to my very first hypothesis and the very first layout that I did here before we assembled the panel. You always have to keep that in the pocket here. Remember in what was it, St. Mary's by the Sea, the guy that broke in 261 and 187, the elderly woman down there off of Coast Highway. What is that? Or Carlsbad Boulevard? Is it Coast Highway?
Yeah, it's just south of the border of Oceanside and Carlsbad. Yeah, I remember the case. I did not work the case, but I remember it.
Who pulled that one?
Castaneda, Rich Castaneda, and Ray Trujillo.
Okay, so in that situation, I mean, that was a horrendous case. We will tell you that how old was she? She like in her 80s or 90s, wasn't she?
Yeah, I think 80s. Mm-hmm.
And she was in a nursing home, and the suspect broke in through a window.
Mm-hmm. It was an SA and a homicide.
Yeah. And so that always has to stay on the table, unfortunately.
The lab can do that and still preserve some of that evidence in case the defense wants to test it. Should we make an arrest? All of those things are considered. It is truly a complex process in gathering that evidence, submitting it, analyzing it, and then resubmitting it. So yes, you're correct. The next step of DNA for those pieces would be to submit for genealogy.
Okay, that's a big step there. What about the sample inside the home? What's the status of those results, the
Same
testing?
thing. It's the same thing. I prioritize the home. That's our crime scene, well above anything found 2, 3, 4, 5 miles away. And we still have work to do there too.
Okay. It seems, Sheriff, that the department is almost like drowning in data. You have investigators have received 40,000 to 50,000 tips, at times 5,000 an hour between you and the FBI. I mean, logistically, how does an agency decide, even with the FBI's help, effectively sift through that volume and make sure that the golden tip doesn't fall through the cracks?
Well, you have, first of all, there are resources out there that will collect that data and sort through it for you and put it and prioritize it however you want it to be prioritized. Those programs exist. We know that, and we utilize them. But we take all of those leads, and a level 1 lead might be higher priority than a level 4 lead. Example of a level 1 lead would be that video, the door camera video. It's a big lead. A level 4 lead might be, hey, I was asleep last night and I dreamed of aliens coming down to Earth. We're not gonna diminish that lead and say, oh, don't bother us with that stuff. Send it to us. Because if I say don't send me that one, what does that tell the community? I don't want to bother the department. I don't want to bother them with this. This isn't that big. No, send them in. We will sort through the 30, 40,000 leads. It's when you stop getting those leads and you've ran out of leads, that's when your case has gone cold.
So you're saying bring it on. Basically.
Bring it on. We're prepared to deal with it.
This goes with your coming off your statement yesterday. It was a big statement, because as recently as this past weekend, and even in the press conference, that you've said that everyone is on the table, everyone's being questioned. Now you've officially cleared the family of Nancy Guthrie as suspects. You called them victims in this case. What specific piece of evidence changed between this weekend and Monday that allowed you to officially rule them out, or were they ruled out a while ago?
They've been ruled out a while ago. Here's the thing for that. And the reason you probably saw my remarks, and they were a little terse. Look, you just as I stepped up, see, when we had our last press conference, I told you wouldn't be hearing from us for press conference. We're just not going to hold press conferences to hold press conferences. What we would tell you is, as we get information, we will put it out, and that has happened. But when I have media, social media, news media, putting a wedge between two agencies, the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Department, two agencies that consider each other viable to their existence, to be able to solve crimes, we need the FBI. The FBI needs the Sheriff's Department. When this case is all gone, there's still going to be the Sheriff's Department and the FBI. When you try to separate that, you're not just hurting those agencies, you're hurting my community. And I'm not going to stand here and let anybody say, oh, the sheriff has a bad relationship, or the sheriff blocked the evidence from the FBI. That is so far from the truth. Just as I'm not going to let anybody sit there and say mean things about our victims. We're cops. Sorry, I know I'm a politician. I suck at that. I'm not a good politician. That's okay. But I know one thing. I've been a cop for 50 years. And I know a cop's job. And one of those, the main job is to do what? To protect. To protect those victims out there who have no voice, who expect somebody to stand up for them. When you say, look, this family is hurting. To say the things that have been said about them and even to speculate, I'm sorry, that's just wrong. We're human beings. We're supposed to be better than that.
Staying on this topic, you called the...
Okay, I want to catch something real fast. I can appreciate what he's saying there. But I'm going to point something out really fast. Because he has a responsibility to explain to the public what the behavior is in relationship to the family as a whole. Okay? And this is my opinion, but I want you to just look. And by the way, everybody knows that YouTube is having a glitch. We get it. I get it. Okay. My chat's not even moving right now. So I can't even see your comments or anything like that. So we'll get to them, but I hope you can hear me. Okay. And I'm crossing my fingers that you can hear me. But here's what I'm going to say. And we're going to go over this ad nauseum here tonight. Because like him, I started in this business in 1982. I still work on a daily basis with the Cold Case Foundation. And I have 4 active homicides right now. There is a trial going on in Michigan, the D. Warner case. I worked on that case. And that's in trial as we sit here. I did work on the Michael Vaughn case. That's coming to trial. And so when I am critiquing, I'm not saying that I don't know what I'm talking about. And I'm glad that he pointed out that he's a politician and that he's been a cop for 50 years. To be honest with you, that's part of the problem. Politicians don't solve crimes. Okay? They don't solve crimes. Investigators solve crimes. And not even the investigator a lot of times. The public solves the crime, or evidence solves the crime. Okay? So I want you to watch at the very last sentence after he's done. He takes a quick right glimpse over to the PIO, like, did I do good? And it's just a microsecond. But if I was interviewing this guy and I thought he had some jeopardy in him, I would have put that in my toolbox and not told him that I saw it. So watch this. I'm going to back up for a second. And he's talking about the family. Pay attention to his eyes.
We're supposed to be better than that.
Staying on this topic, you called the suspicion.
Down and to the right is a sign of deception. I've seen it a million times.
Be better than that.
Staying on this topic, you called the suspicion toward the family cruel and wrong.
Did everybody catch that? Bob, did you see that?
I did. Yeah, it was real quick, a blink and a glance down to the right.
Okay, so what this is telling us, experienced investigators, I spent 13 years in homicide. It's not my first rodeo. I think we heard from the POA president, the sheriff's department. We heard from a former homicide guy there going, hey, the experience level of these guys is waning. But to Bob's point, they probably put much more experienced guys alongside of them. So they're going to be able to work in conjunction with experience. That's how we all learn. Okay. That's how it all works. But you can't go around and start projecting yourself that everything is good in River City. Because when you do that, the beast, as we'll call it, or the public or whoever, and in today's world, i.e. social media, will eat you alive. Law enforcement has not adjusted to that reality. It's almost like when cassettes disappeared from the music industry and digital music came into play. The music industry for years was in denial that there's a new way of doing things. Now, here's a couple of questions that we need answered. I think he needs to clarify it and clean it up for the public. Because I have said, if this car that's been reported by other people was towed from Annie's house, and now the sheriff is saying everybody's cleared, the first question that somebody needs to establish is reality, and this goes for the mainstream media. I'm going to ask you to do your job. The first question is this: is this car, does it belong to Annie? Not Nancy. We know Nancy's car was towed out. But is this Annie's car? And if it is, are they holding it in evidence, or have they turned it back over? That's the $1 million question tonight. Take all the other noise about the family out of the picture, because this would explain potentially what's going on behind the scenes and what the sheriff is not saying, and why he keeps getting in trouble with this forked tongue. Okay? Because if this is Annie's car and they are holding it in evidence, you do not impound the daughter's car of a missing 84-year-old woman unless it's evidence, and hold it. So for me, if in fact this is her car and it's still in evidence, media, do your job. Find out. If it's not her car and it's not in evidence, let's move on. Nothing to see here. Thoughts, Bob?
Yeah, I agree. The sheriff created this issue with the Guthrie family in terms of whether they're a suspect or not. And, we had a 24-hour period there where he emphatically said no one has been eliminated. And then he turns around 24 hours later and clears the family. Okay, so be it. But, this goes to a bigger picture for me anyway. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again at the risk of being overly redundant. And that is, the sheriff should never be, or the chief of police or the head of any agency should not be the primary public information officer, especially in a huge case like this. I'm not suggesting that the sheriff should never have anything to say about it or should never give media interviews, but he should limit them and he should have his public information officer on a regular basis come out and make statements to the media, so everybody else, so the media is not crafting the narrative. And some of that is going on here. I think the whole thing with the family, Tommaso and Annie in particular, that's how that got started. So this is a great case in point to highlight for people that put these PIO classes on for law enforcement. I took mine, a rather extensive course at the FBI National Academy. It was a great course. Jim Vance taught that, and he was the PIO on the old tailhook investigation, for those of you a little older that remember that. So without beating the drum too much on this PIO thing, this is the problem with Sheriff Nanos, is he talks too much, and he has created a narrative of himself where he's just really not that reliable. And so therefore, too many people are questioning what he is saying. And, I just wish he would stop and allow one of his, I'm sure, very capable PIOs, whether that's a sergeant or a lieutenant, to step in and start taking over these media pressers.
Yeah, I agree. So, and here's the reason why. So we're going to go back to fundamentals. And a PIO is a public information officer. Karen was a public information officer. She came from the journalism side, and the chief hired her to handle all the press and things like this. Typically, she would work alongside with usually a lieutenant and below. And the lieutenant or a captain, maybe a captain and below. The sheriff would be nowhere to be seen, okay? Or the chief would be nowhere to be seen. And the reason for that is to prevent what Bob just said, to prevent stuff like this, where it's a constant he said, she said, we're defending relationships and all this other stuff. You know what? The public doesn't care about your relationship with the FBI. They could care less. They care about the professionalism trying to capture the perpetrator that did this and trying to recover Nancy Guthrie. That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line, what the public cares about. And so by coming up and talking about it, it's almost like talking to one of the trolls in a chat somewhere, because all they're going to do is, poke you. I mean, think about what's going on out there. Let me give you some headlines on tail runs here. Pizza's being delivered to the door. 500 tweets in 2 seconds. 5,000 tweets, 10,000 tweets. Pizza at the door. Strange man in the backyard. Looks like the gardener. Drones over top. What's he doing? Tweet, 10,000 of them. The pool man's here. It just keeps going, and that's because the sheriff doesn't hold the daily presser and say with his, not the sheriff himself, but his people going, okay, here's today's update. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Nothing to see here today. We answered that yesterday. Thank you. I'll circle back with you. If I have that answer, I'll give it to you. If I don't, you understand. I don't want to compromise the investigation. Here's what we know. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Because everything that's flowing here will flow back, right? Water will come downhill rapidly when they capture this guy or gals or guys or whoever it's going to be, and there's a trial. All of this is going to come back, and they're going to put the sheriff on the stand and say, well, isn't it true, Sheriff, that you said? And you know what? You don't want to be that guy that day. You just don't want to do it. You don't want to be that guy. Okay. Because they're going to bring up stuff that we're going to talk about. And I'm going to narrow this down to real simple police work. It's not gumshoe police work. It's just police work. Common sense. The timeline. I constantly go back to the timeline because I have not left the house. And you just heard the sheriff today, 2 weeks later, say, well, we're still working the house. Well, that's a really super great, amazing sign. And by the way, I'm not one of the pundits personally. Okay. If you want some help, I'll come over and help you. I got 300 murders under my belt, Sheriff. Love to help you. 5:32 p.m. Saturday. Nancy takes an Uber to Annie's house for dinner and games. 9:48 p.m. Dropped off allegedly by either Annie and Tommaso or Tommaso. You need a clarity to the public on that point. There's confusion, and you need to have your PIO or hit your Twitter page, whatever you do, clear it up.
The sheriff created that confusion by telling us two different things. First, he said they both drove them home, and then he said Tommaso. Now, I could have that in reverse order, but he said two different things on that. And it's a very important point. So it does need to be clarified, and he needs to be the one to do it, or his PIO.
9:48, the garage door opens. What does that mean? It means if you do a victimology, what we call a pattern of life, remember, mom is a passenger. So either she has the capability to open the garage door, or the driver has the capacity to open the garage door. If the driver is Tommaso, he has the app to open the garage door. And if that's the point of entry that grandma always takes into that house, that is significant. If she has the app and it came from her phone, and this is where they got this data, that is also significant, because that shows a pattern of life and a habit that grandma has, Miss Nancy, on how she gets into her house when she's being dropped off from Annie's house. It's significant because now we know at 9:50 p.m., 2 minutes later, the garage door closes. But then there's confusion. The sheriff needs to clear up point number 2. That confusion is one of the questions the very first night, and I played it the other night, was the family with her in the house? The journalist asked that question. His response was yes. So you have a 2-minute time frame for the family to hang out with her potentially in the house. Or is he talking about the house, Annie's house? That's confusion. It should be cleared up because the public is listening to every single word. Now, Not so confusing is 1:47 a.m. The Nest doorbell disconnects. Okay. 2:12 a.m. Person seen on camera. Tell the public we have more video. You don't have to show it. You've already told the public there is another person seen on camera. Is it the same guy on the porch? And if it's not, that's okay. You can hold it back. But you need to answer the question and qualify this statement. Doorbell Nest camera disconnects. Shadow seen on camera. It's a person, you said. That's confusing as all get out to this investigation. 2:28 a.m. Nancy's pacemaker app disconnects from her Apple Watch. You did a great job, Sheriff, clarifying that her watch was there at home, that her phone is there at home, that her purse is there, that her keys are there. Now it gets confusing. And I'm going to start with this.
A little bit more of a timeline, because you said she didn't leave on her own. That she was last seen at 9:45. She wasn't reported missing until noon. But
I believe what happened there was at 9:45 in the evening, her children left her off. At some time earlier that morning, they got a call from somebody at the church who said, "Hey, your mom's not here." The family went to the house. I'm thinking they spent some time looking for her themselves before they called us. So I'm guessing maybe they got there around 11. So they did.
Okay. Homicide, you don't guess to the public. They got there a little earlier. I'm guessing around 11. Okay. Don't guess, because that opened the family up for, wait a minute. The 911 call comes in at 12:03 and they got there at 11:56. And this time that he just gave is 9:45, which gives an extra 3 minutes before the garage door opens. Because in the time, the narrowed timeline is 9:48. But in that statement he just made, it was 9:45. Okay? Every single thing I'm talking about, a defense attorney will pick up on. Everything. Well, isn't it true you said 9:45? Well, I don't remember. Well, let's play the tape. Isn't it true you said 9:48? Well, I don't really remember. Let's play the tape. So which one is it that you say my guy was there? Because my guy wasn't there. He left at, 9:44. It's critical. Bob, thoughts?
Yeah, let me interject something here. So there's two philosophies when you're talking about timelines and being a PIO or a sheriff or a chief of police. And particularly when it's a high profile case like this. So some people think in the PIO world that it's best not to give a timeline, a nailed down specific timeline to the minute, which is what Sheriff Nanos has done or tried to do. And then, but the media is going to ask, and rightfully so, I understand why they're asking, but you preface this every time you talk about the timeline, you use the word approximately. or it was somewhere between 9:45 and 10 p.m. Somewhere in that area, we believe. Well, Sheriff, haven't you locked down the timeline to a more precise time period? And you can say, yes, we have, but I'm not going to tell you. Okay. So we believe that it's somewhere within this time frame that these events occurred. So you avoid these problems that Sheriff Nanos is having with the timeline.
I totally agree. 1,000%. And he did that the night before, where he gave just what you said. He gave approximates. There's approximate, et cetera. Then he said, here's the official timeline. This is what we know. And that's when he laid these numbers out. And I think that's where everything opened up for the people to go, wait a minute. Okay, so let's talk about this. And this is why it's critical for me to jump to the next morning. Because we now know that she hung out with this group of girlfriends who are or who watch the show on the East Coast, or they watch a preacher on the East Coast. Okay, from where she lives, that's Mountain Standard Time, to the East Coast, that is a 2-hour difference. It's 2 hours. So if the show if the sermon starts at 9:30, that means it's 7:30 in New York, or wherever it was. I think it was on the upstate New York somewhere. Okay. Well, I've heard here's why Mermaid Energy. It's actually 2 hours because that part of Arizona, it's like one of the weirdest places where they don't jump forward or fall back. And the only reason I know that is because I lived in that area, not Tucson. I lived up in the White Mountains. Okay. And so it's 2 hours. Okay. So now, if that's the case, then if the girlfriends pick up the phone, it's 9:30 in the morning to call the daughters. Your mom is not on the stream. And it makes sense that the daughter says, well, let's go over there. It makes sense that she's probably called a half dozen times. Mom, where are you? What are you doing? Answer the phone. Answer the phone. Leaving voice messages. It makes sense that if it's 9:30, 10 o'clock-ish, did they wait an hour and a whole hour between 10 and 11 to go check on mom? That's why the timeline is important here. And if that gap, that hour exists, because now you've got possibly, if you line up the church sermon time, whatever that's going to be, that means from that time to 11:56, that's almost 2 hours to go check on mom. That's a long time. That is a long, long time. Now, we add the other dimensions to this, which the sheriff just said on that first interview. I'm not going to get into how the suspect got into the house. Why not? The suspect already knows how he got in the house. And when you sit down with him, you ask him, how'd you get in the house? Well, you guys already know that. Okay, tell me. Well, blah, blah, blah. So if you say to the public, It appears there was no forced entry into the residence, and we're investigating that piece of the crime here, but we're not going to talk about it any further. Then the public goes, oh crap, they know. They know something. The other advantage to that is you put pressure on the suspect inadvertently. And that's what you want to do. You want to raise their jeopardy, want to raise their risk level. But if you hold it back, then people are going to say, well, wait a minute, let's figure out how the suspect got in the house automatically. And guess what we discover? Just anybody can do this. The front door has blood on the porch. No signs of forced entry. The garage, we know there's a timeline, 9:58 or 9:48 opened, 9:50 closed. No timeline when the family got there to look for mom in the morning. That data point, I'm going to keep pounding, is still missing. And if mom's a passenger in the car getting dropped off at her own house, did she open the garage door at 9:48 to get in? And if so, okay, or if she didn't, then somebody else did, and they had access to do that. So now we think about an 84-year-old woman is missing. The phone call comes in. Mom drives over there, or excuse me, daughter drives over, maybe husband, I don't know. Okay. They drive over and they don't go in through the garage. And they don't go in through the front door. They decide to go around the back of the house where this door is left wide open. And we just saw a video the other day with Fox News and a drone. And you can clearly see none of those doors were disturbed in the back of that yard, in the back of that house. However, what I find really weird is they went out of their way to point out that the spotlight, activation light, was broken. It's just kind of hanging there. So what did the suspect do? Did he take his backpack and hit the light? Did he reach up and grab it and tear it down? And if so, why? Why is he doing that? And now he goes over to the house, to the door, the other blue door underneath the porch. Is it left open? And she walks in, and this guy just walks in and leaves it open behind him? Or does the family get there and say, when we got there, the back door was closed and we opened it? Because if they say it was wide open, when they got around to the front door or to that door and into the house, and they went into the bedroom, and they saw all the stuff the sheriff saw, and the sheriff said, this is a crime scene. And I'm not going to talk about this to the public. Well, that kind of puts shade over onto the family. Sheriff. Okay. Because if they ran out the front door to check for mom, they see mom's blood. And so if they run back into the house and they have a whole hour potentially, a whole hour to search for mom, because if he says they got there around, I'm guessing 11. Okay. Well, that guess was off by 56 minutes. That's a huge amount of time in a high profile case like this. Right or wrong, Bob?
Yeah, absolutely it is.
And so I think that was the very first kick in the suspicion of when you take the victim risk continuum and you go low risk victim, who's in the circle, you start looking at the pool guy, you start looking at the lawn guy, you start looking at the family. But here's the difference. The family was who picked her up, the only people to see her alive, and who dropped her off. Those are the only two, the only circle of people that saw Nancy Guthrie alive and go into that house potentially. Outside of this other guy that they're looking for on the Nest camera. Now, this is why this is so important. Because within 2 days, and the Uber driver, we got him. We said that on the last one. Within a day or so, they impounded Annie's car. The daughter's car. So here's the question. If you have totally cleared the family, totally, did you release the car? Or is it still in impound based on the reporting of people who got that picture and have said that's her car? If it's still in evidence, you need to tell the public why. Because they're not buying it right now, if that's the case.
I would think that if the sheriff has completely cleared the family, that he would give an explanation not only on the car, but why they searched Annie and Tommaso's house, twice, why they were taking a series of photos in there at night, why they searched the neighborhood, their neighborhood, talking to all their neighbors. We all saw it on the media. And so, you know, if he's going to clear them, fine, that's fine. I'm glad they're cleared, but he should explain that, since he's opened Pandora's box here with the Guthrie family, and specifically Annie and Tommaso. He needs to clarify that. I agree.
Yeah. And then he can't blame the public in his last statement there of people being cruel. Okay. It's our job as it's his job as a professional to say, look, not only are they cleared, but they are so cooperative. We did an evidence search over at their house because that's the last place mom was seen. And we collected evidence over there about the mother because she's the missing victim here. But everybody reads into that, including myself, as why are you over there taking photographs in the middle of the night and maybe running an ALS or whatever they were doing over there? And we'll find that out later on. Because later on, when this comes back, hypothetically, if there is something more going to this thing and you're just trying to tuck it away, okay, a defense attorney is going to eat you alive. And go ahead, Bob.
Well, and so just, I'm seeing in some of the comments. So again, the sheriff has opened Pandora's box on this issue with the Guthrie family. And so now that he has opened that door, he needs to explain it. Yes, I said that he talks too much, essentially, but he's told us too much. But now that he's opened that door, he needs to explain it, because it's just creating even more questions. Today, it created more questions in the media and in the pundits, with the pundits. And so now is a good time for him to come out and clarify those things in particular.
Yeah. And it's like this, they're afraid to put pressure on a suspect, whoever that suspect is. And that you can't be afraid of that. I mean, Bobby, how many times have we pulled suspects in and said, look, I'm coming. Okay. I may not have it right now, bud, but I'm after you, and you know it, and I know it.
Well, you know, and a lot of times we begin an investigation or begin dealing with a person involved in a crime, and we're in interview mode. Interview mode is a fact-finding mode. And then we quickly move into interrogation mode, and that's an accusatory mode. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know where they've been with the persons of interest, the suspects, including those from the search warrant the other night. I don't know, you know, to what extent they got to those people, but with respect to Annie and Tommaso, the sheriff, without doubt, owes everyone an explanation as to what happened there.
Yeah, and journalists went, you know, they got into the environment out there. I mean, I didn't say that was her car. I heard that, and it came from, you know, a journalist. It didn't come from me. Okay, but it did raise a question in my mind, and that's when I started looking back at the garage door timeline, and we have no information about how the family got into the house to search for mom. There's no information out there. The sheriff has left that vague, and he just did it again today. Okay, by telling Fox News in the very beginning of the interview, I'm not going to go there about, you know, how the suspect or how the family got into the house. Well, okay. I think that's a mistake. Personal opinion, nobody else's. You have to live with the consequences, ultimately. Okay, so now, which brings us to the next piece of this puzzle. Remember the other night we talked about these guys, and I pointed out the Violent Crime Task Force, Gang Task Force. All right, we went over the Range Rover on our last piece of this puzzle the other night. Nobody caught the fact that the Violent Crime Task Force was there. Now, why is that important? Because we hear that the FBI is going around Tucson to every gun store with 40 names. Okay. And as Bob said today, it's like they're just shooting into a flock of geese, which I loved your analogy. Tell everybody your analogy.
Well, you know, 40 names, and I don't want to sound overly critical because they have to do this. These
Right.
are 40 names that apparently were identified by the agents and the FBI analysts that are undoubtedly working alongside the detectives and agents in this case that have come up with 40 names of potential persons of interest or suspects. And so now they're going around with this list of people all over town, as Chris said, to the gun shops. And they're just, you know, aiming a shotgun into a flock of geese and hoping they put one down. So at least that's what I think. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't do it again. They should do it because they do have the numbers of agents. But what does that tell us? What does that say about the investigation? It's not being very fruitful apparently at this point if they are doing that. And I would add the billboards into that, the fact that, and I realize they did some of this last week, but increased the reward money. They doubled the reward money. And so where are we here with this case? And the sheriff really hasn't explained it very well. He's just come out and reiterated over and over again, we have no suspects, we have no suspects, we have no suspects. So one other thing, Chris, if you go back to that photo, please. So the sheriff did mention in the interview that we watched that he had detectives assigned to the FBI building. And I think that this these task force officers here are the reason why he has detectives there. So I'm sure Tucson PD and the surrounding metropolitan, Tucson metropolitan agencies all have at least a detective assigned to this task force, and it's a violent crimes task force. And what they do essentially is they'll investigate major crimes and violent crimes all over the Tucson metro area. So that's what he was talking about for those that caught that and maybe didn't understand what he was talking about.
Yeah, and here's another point that Bob and I are going to point out here. Whenever a handgun is purchased in the United States, there is an instant background check that is run at the gun store. And that goes to ATF instantaneously. And if there's any flags about the person purchasing the weapon, that comes right back to the clerk. And that clerk is then directed to the nearest ATF office. From that buyer, that buyer is directed to go to the ATF office and see why there's a problem. Now, here's the other side of that. Every name that goes into that system when you purchase a gun is already there. It's sitting there. So this could open up the door to possibly an alias being used. If the feds have 40 names, it could be an alias to somebody else that they're looking at. And they may go to all these gun stores and say, any of these names look familiar to you? Can you check your store records? Can you check your receipts? Can you, look at your logs? Because trust me, ATF has this gun thing buttoned very tight. Okay. There's NIBUS, there's all kinds of systems out there that, they fight about in Congress. Okay. Trust me, legal gun owners are under the thumb of the government. They know that you have a gun. And so the loopholes, though, for criminals is they may use an AKA, also known as. They may have that list of a series of, maybe if it's a career criminal can have 10 names. They may be flushing that angle with maybe 2 or 3 people that have AKAs. Hey, any of these names come in here, that's a possibility out there as well for the public. Because it doesn't make any sense to me from an investigative side. And Bob, I mean, you tell me what you're thinking.
Yeah, they have to do this legwork. It's, these are just leads. Most leads that we follow up on when we're out working a case like this turn out to be nothing. We get nothing from it. But another thing that could have happened here with respect to the gun is, number one, I'm not convinced it's a real gun. Yeah. Number two, it is just as likely that however this person obtained the gun, that they got it either off the street or they purchased it on some website from a private party. And I'm not sure what the laws are in Arizona with respect to selling a gun by a private party. I'm not sure if it's reportable or not. Probably not.
Right.
Okay. So, we don't even know anything about the gun. Some people were trying to super sleuth and say that they know exactly what kind of gun it was. I couldn't tell what kind of gun it was, or if it was even a real firearm.
Yeah. So the gun thing, they're chasing it. That's a good thing to see. Like Bob said, they're checking the boxes, and this is why the FBI, they have a lot of resources to do stuff like this. Okay, that's what they're, so that's, again, this goes hand in hand. Okay. You've got, like we talked about, I believe we have two trains that are running parallel to one another, two investigations running parallel, because they're still dealing with the Bitcoin first ransom letters that came in. The feds are still tying that stuff up. And every day or every other day, you get this TMZ alert, okay, that we got another letter, and now she's in Mexico, okay, that she crossed the border. That's a very difficult thing to do today, to go from the United States to Mexico. Okay. It's very difficult. And especially with an 84-year-old woman. And now to get her into that side of the world, when everybody in Arizona, and especially at the border, has had a bolo from that morning, to look for her. Is it possible? I'll never say never. Is it probable? I'm going to be surprised, but I've been surprised many times on this path. So what I thought was weird, though, was they have pictures with all 40 of those names. You don't want to confuse a clerk at a store with, I'm going to show you 40 pictures of 40 different guys, and you tell me if you recognize anybody. Yeah, this guy was here a week ago. That guy was about a month ago. This guy over here. Oh, yeah, that's Frank. What's Frank doing in here? Okay. So I've never done that. I probably wouldn't have done that. There are other ways of doing that. Not in, the Costco bulk buy. Okay. We used to have what we call the 6-pack, where you only put 6 pictures in and then you show it to a witness after reading them an admonishment. You don't walk in with 40 separate pictures and say, okay, here's 40 pictures, take a look. Bob, what say you?
Yeah, TV has made the mug book popular, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. I'm not saying that departments don't have those. Some departments do have those, but they're rarely used anymore. To approach a gun shop and to show 40 photos and with name, well, they're probably not showing the names, but they're showing the photos and asking these clerks if they recognize any of these people. That's a pretty far-fetched undertaking. But as I said earlier, they have to do it. At least they have to follow up on these. Now, maybe not 40 at a time, as Chris indicated. Maybe, they divide them up and maybe 10 or even 15 at a time might be, because you start, anyone that starts looking at 40 photos at one time, the chance of them picking out somebody that they think might have come in here that looks like this guy on the video, that's going to be pretty slim, very slim. So, but again, they've got to follow up on it. So I'm not trying to be overly critical, but it is a undaunting task to do that, I would think.
So that's probably why these guys are in play. All right. So let's talk for a second about the border possibility. Write this acronym down. ACTIC. ACTIC. It's the Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center. It's a fusion center. They're all over the United States. Everybody knows about them. They would have flagged certain movements, certain cars, certain things in certain ways. And that's why this guy potentially to the left is in play here. Okay. There's another one that runs the border. It's EPIC. It's called EPIC. It's the El Paso Intelligence Center. The cartels know all about these things, so we're not giving away any secrets. Okay. And these things here run that border from Texas all the way through into California. And then there's another one in Cali. It's called the NICRIC. That's NorCal. And then there's one in the south. Okay. NICRIC is Northern Regional Intelligence Center. It's a fusion center. That's what they are. They gather data. Okay. Now, what's interesting is, Bob, I want your opinion on this. Could this thing have moved out of Tucson, and it's now into a larger play? Or are you still of the opinion, like we talked the other day, about this is still a local situation with local players?
Yes, I do. But I also have to be realistic and say that it's possible that there are outside players. You know, we're in close proximity to San Diego and Los Angeles. And so there could be a nexus to people there. There could be, as you just indicated, could be some people from Texas. It really could be anywhere, quite frankly. And but when you take a look at everything that's going on here and everything that we know about Nancy. Now, I'm not referring to the Bitcoin aspect of this case because I'm not sure that they're related. But with respect to Nancy and the type of crime this is and the unfortunate type of crime it likely is at this point, it's probably going to be local people and in the greater Tucson area is my educated guess, and that's all it is at this point. And I do believe that it is a conspiracy among several people, at least two people, and I don't think one person could have pulled this off. And it's not likely that two people pulled this off. I think it's probably anywhere from 2 to 5 people that are involved in this. So there's been no detection of Nancy. There's been no contact. They don't have significant leads. And so I would say that they're hiding in plain sight, if you will, and that it's going to be a conspiracy among several people. That's my educated guess.
Yeah, and this is why the other night, all of us on our panel thought it was a outlier that this guy in LA pops up in the middle of the largest, hunt for Nancy Guthrie in the world. I mean, since the Lindbergh baby is what I, put it to. Okay. And you've got the largest hunt going on, and all of a sudden this guy shows up and he sends a text message to Annie and a text message to Tommaso. And here's the text message. Did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction. One, that's plural. And he's asking for Bitcoin. And he's waiting for a transaction to occur. He also called a family member for 9 seconds. And I know I keep talking about this, but I still think it's really super weird that this gentleman in LA, Los Angeles, just pops up out of the blue. And who does he talk to? Or, excuse me, who does he send text messages to? He sends text messages to the sister, who's not even the spokesperson for the family, and her husband, who's not even on the radar with the family. He's not in any of the press conferences. He's not in any of the notes. He's not sitting there going, I'm part of the family, kumbaya. And the feds mysteriously, creative writing 101, say, well, a family member was called and the call was made or was 9 seconds long. And then they don't talk anymore about the call. They talk about the 2 text messages, and they say the text messages have not been linked to the 2-2 ransom demand. Okay, because those are linked in the letters, the demand letters. Okay, that's where all that is linked. All that is linked in those letters. Okay, and so as a result of that, that's creative writing, in my opinion, because they're not also telling us who that family member was that they called, that this guy called. And next thing you know, I think a logical question has to be asked here. The explanation is this guy does an open source intel search on Annie, and he pulls out of the air Tommaso's phone number and Annie's phone number. Okay, great. It's open source intelligence. I get that. We all get that. But why not just text Annie? She's the family member, the bloodline of Nancy Guthrie. How is this other guy thrown into the mix, her husband, who happens to potentially be the very last guy that dropped her off?
All great questions, Chris. I did read that affidavit that you have on his activity and the trying to explain it, but it is vague, and it is. I agree with you. It was very carefully written. So the next question that I have, and I'm sure the FBI knows the answer already, was this gentleman in Tucson on January 31st and February 1st? And if so, where was he? He had a cell phone with him, apparently. And so they probably know the answer to that question.
Okay.
And they're not going to tell us right now, and I understand why, but that is a huge part of this case that has really been overlooked except for here on TIR. So not very, no one really has made an issue out of that since the whole Bitcoin, since they came out and said that he was under arrest. That's been overlooked. Nobody has said a word about it that I've heard anyway.
Yeah, it's an angle that you and I would have been sitting just like we are here going, Bob, are we missing something here? Is this, this guy, would you want to go interview this guy, Bob, again?
I would interrogate him. Yeah.
At this point, right?
Sure.
I mean,
Absolutely.
You'd want to get in there and say, okay, help us understand again. Okay, we get Annie's piece of the puzzle here, without a doubt. We get Annie's piece of the puzzle. Okay. That's the victim's daughter. But I'm curious, how in the world did you get in the middle of this thing? And here's the complaint right here. And this is this Derek Kaleka guy. I'm not off of this guy yet. I know people have, they're like, would you let go of McDonough? I said, okay, no, I'm not going to let go yet until there is a clarity here. And I don't have clarity here personally. Okay. Because listen to this. He lays out in his affidavit for the charges of this guy in the first paragraph. But then we get into the real meat and potatoes here. Count 2. On or about February 4th, shortly after the video was published, AC, which is Annie, and TC, which is her husband, the daughter and son-in-law of Nancy, both separately received a text message from the following phone number. And he uses a burner phone, a ghost number out of Southern California. That's San Diego County, 760. Stating, here's the text message. Did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction. What's he talking about? To Tommaso. Why is he texting Tommaso asking him, did you get the Bitcoin? When it's Savannah, her brother, and Annie at the table getting the letters of demand. Why is he talking to Tommaso? That makes no sense to me. I mean, I could be in total left field here. I've had people laugh at me, and all. I'm used to it. I'm good with that. Okay. But I got a 90% solvability rate too. So I'm gonna stick to what I know sometimes. I could be wrong. I'll take it, not a problem. I just find it weird. Okay? Because now we go down here, they talk about how they traced it and everything, the IP address. But then real subtly and just kind of hidden at the back of this affidavit, this FBI agent goes, oh, by the way, data received shows that approximately 3 minutes after the text messages, he called a family member of Nancy Guthrie, which lasted 9 seconds. Who's that family member? Let's do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Click. That's a long time to have a phone call. That's a long time. And what does he do? The agent, the two text messages have not been linked to the February 2, 26 ransom demand. So what he's saying here, what this agent is saying, the ransom demand, we don't think it's the same guy asking for the ransom. And so you have one set of conversations saying, where's the money? And you have another set saying, send the money. Think about that. In this conversation, it's we're waiting. In that conversation, they're saying, connect with us. We're willing to pay. Two thought processes going on simultaneously. One is waiting, and one is saying, connect with us. We'll make it happen. And so this very first text is a question. Did you get the Bitcoin? Which now we can go to, is somebody working with somebody else in this Bitcoin problem that's connected to the garage door opening or not opening? I don't know. These are definitely questions that need to be looked into. And I hope I am in absolute left field. I really do. But they can't be ignored. And I'm sure the investigators have flushed this out, because what did we hear in the most recent thing? The family's been cleared. And what do we hear in LA? He's not connected. But you know what will happen? I guarantee you, Bobby, you know what I'm going to say. That guy in LA, they took his buccal swab. And they're gonna check it. Not necessarily in CODIS, because he may not be in. Well, he's in CODIS today. Okay. But they're going to run it up against the other stuff that they may have. And maybe he's not the guy who has ever come over here. And they're going to say, well, he's not in the house. Okay, well, what's his role? I don't know. Personally, they thought it was important enough to take that guy down quickly, but they haven't taken the knuckleheads down who are sending the 4 letters to TMZ in the last 2 weeks. What's going on with that one? But that guy, they grab him quickly. In law enforcement, we call that potentially the weakest link, the further out. And you sit down with him, and the feds are notorious for this. You're out of options. And we ran through this the other night in our other video. If you want the totality of it, I'm not going to, repeat it. But the other night, we broke this down succinctly as a collective. And the first one to the table wins. Yeah, exactly. Here's a great way of putting it. Debt collector calling. Did you get the Bitcoin? That's a weird way to craft a text message to a guy that's not even in front of the cameras. And it just so happened that same guy dropped Nancy off at the house. He was the last one to see her alive outside of the guy in the outfit. A $10.88 duffel bag.
I'd be really interested to know what Mr. California does for a living. What's his forte? Is he a drug dealer? Is he a bookie? Is he both? How does he make a living? Is he a loan shark? What does he do? I don't know. I'd like to know.
Bingo. And we're not saying he's the guy. We're not saying he's involved. All we're saying is it's curious. And I would want to flush that out like Bob's saying. And you notice, everybody, he just had a hearing last week in Tucson. So he is here. He's back in Arizona. He's in Arizona, in which they can do. They can, you know, the U.S. Attorney's Office can pass it off from L.A. to Arizona and say, here you go. Okay, he's your guy now, seeing how you guys got the most pressure going over there. I find that interesting why they didn't keep him in L.A. if he's just kind of a one-off. You know, why are they bringing him to Arizona? Go ahead.
Well, I have an answer for that. So the charges obviously are coming from an incident that occurred here in Arizona. And so Arizona U.S. Attorney's Office is claiming jurisdiction over it. So there is a process. I can't remember what it's called. There's a legal term for it in the federal code, but they can hold the initial appearance in Los Angeles if that's where he's arrested. But then the marshals are almost always instructed by a judge to transport them to the district that has jurisdiction over the case. And in this case, of course, it's Arizona and Tucson. So that's probably why they brought him back here for the initial appearance. And he'll most likely have a second hearing, which is going to be a plea here. Well, he made a plea in the initial appearance, but he's going to either have a preliminary hearing or there's going to be some kind of discovery or something else go on with the case here, probably within the next couple of weeks.
So, Bobby, I think it would be interesting for the audience to understand that process of when a prisoner's picked up and they're moved and that kind of stuff. I mean, you being an undersheriff in the past, you have a clear understanding of, you know, jails and that kind of stuff. How does it typically unfold?
Well, a lot of it depends on what type of case and who has jurisdiction. So in a case like this, let's say somebody eventually is arrested in Kentucky on this case. They're charged in the District of Arizona, but they're located in Kentucky, and they're arrested. They're put into the federal system in Kentucky, and they may or may not have their initial appearance in Kentucky, or they may immediately be transported back to Arizona by the U.S. Marshals. It is the U.S. Marshals' responsibility to transport and move federal prisoners around. So now it's very rare, but on complex cases, sometimes, let's say the FBI wants to talk to him, and this is all hypothetical, of course, but let's say the FBI wants to talk to him. It could be you send 2 FBI agents to Kentucky to grab him and travel with him back to Arizona in order to talk to him. That doesn't happen very much anymore. It used to happen a lot more, but more than likely, like 98% of the time, it's going to be the U.S. Marshals that is responsible for transporting this person back to Arizona. So that's it in a nutshell. Now, state cases are, they're different. Each agency. We both have been on extraditions many times. And so back in the day when Chris and I were working cases as police detectives, if one of our suspects was arrested in Sacramento, we might go up to Sacramento with a partner and pick them up, put them on a plane, and bring them back, or anywhere for that matter, unless it's out of the country, and then there's other issues involved in that, Interpol and all sorts of other things that have to come into play. That's it in a nutshell.
Is it a walnut shell or is it a pistachio nut shell? What kind of shell?
There's lots of nuts in this case, so it could
be
be whatever kind of nut you want it to be.
Yeah. Remember the Best in Show? Did you ever watch Best in Show about the dog? If you want it, it's hysterical. and you got to go watch it. Best in Show is hysterical, and there's a reference to nuts in there, pine nuts, walnuts. It's hysterical. I'm not going to ruin it for you, but go see it. Okay, so, all right, one of the last things we're going to touch bases tonight. Well, first of all, before I even do that, let's take your questions. And Bob and I will try to answer these questions as best we can. All right, question. Is if you're cleared, can police arrest you for the crime? Yeah, unfortunately they can. Even though they come out publicly and say you're cleared, if they get evidence that points back to you, yeah, they can hook you up.
It actually happens frequently. Detectives, for whatever reason, will say, well, we don't like this guy for this, or we don't like this guy for that. And they have them cleared in their mind, or occasionally, but it's rare that somebody like the sheriff would come out and clear somebody for, what he did yesterday is totally informal. It's not a finding of fact, a legal finding of fact that the sheriff made. It's just he's coming out saying, yeah, they're off the table right now. So, but they absolutely can be brought back into the fray if they find probable cause to do so. And, they haven't found probable cause, and they may not find probable cause because nobody is accusing them of doing anything, especially this panel that we've had. And we're simply asking questions, and others are asking the same questions. And if we're all asking the same questions, then, it's the proper thing is to answer them. And I hope that the sheriff does at some point.
This question, Bobby, from Ginger. Chris or Bob, did either of you hear the interview Brian Enton did? And we love Brian. He's a great journalist, good journalist, very good. Brian Enton did with Sergeant Cross concerning the sheriff. Sergeant Cross is the POA director, I believe, or a union president. It was a bit concerning, to say the least, in my opinion. I saw it, and I also saw through it because I was also the chairman of the police association at some point in my career. I spent a lot of years on the board of directors at the PD, and sometimes you bash heads, and sometimes if you get an opportunity, the chief will throw the POA under the bus, and so will the POA. And believe it or not, behind the scenes, they're still high-fiving each other saying, hey, boss, good one. So I did find it concerning that it's happening now during this case, because that's not the time you want to do it, and not on something this big, because it's going to reflect on everybody ultimately if this thing goes sideways. And that's the danger of throwing the sheriff under the bus so soon.
Yeah, not to be critical of Brian Enton's reporting. If I were a reporter, I probably would have had that interview as well. But these are the kind of issues that are clouding the case right now, and they shouldn't be clouding the case. And that's why the sheriff needs to go steer the ship, but do it outside of the media for a little bit and give it a break and let his PIO put information out there. I know I keep harping on it, but this is a good example of why these misstatements and exaggerations, or whatever you want to call them, that the sheriff has made is created this situation that we're in now. And it's sucking up all the air, in my opinion, in this case, or at least a good portion of the air, oxygen, that is. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be just the other way around, because the focus is on the sheriff, not on Nancy Guthrie, and it needs to be on Nancy.
Well said, Bob. Wisdom. IGG will solve this case. Sheriff said samples was sent to private lab in Florida, probably DNA labs, which have some of the best IGG in the world. Thank you. That is a strong possibility the way things are going. Comment on business card, Nancy NG's door. Advanced investigator from Department of Economic Security, APS. Grateful for your service. This shows these guests this chat, this information. Excuse me.
It's so I'm confident that the investigators in this case are following up on this if they haven't already and found out. It's been in the news for quite a bit, actually. So I'm certain that they followed up on it. There's probably confidential information in there, so that's why we're not hearing any explanation. But I haven't heard any of the reporters ask the sheriff about it though either. So we don't know, but I have a lot of confidence that they followed up on this.
Yeah, and I actually have a screenshot of that somebody sent me. I was just looking for it, but here that is a great comment, no question about it, Amy, and thank you for your generosity. That comment will be flushed out, like Bob just said, pretty quickly during the initial stage of the investigation, and that person, I guarantee you, has already been interviewed at length. All right. Big S gave away too much info only to benefit the perp. Yeah, that's possible. Yep. Maybe watched it, but not live. Okay. I think when Ness guy got Flowers to hide camera, he grabbed the family emergency key hid in the yard. That's how they entered. That's a good, interesting comment. You say they. So you believe, like we had a question the other night, is there more than one, based on those photographs of the dude? Didn't appear that he had the gun with him. Okay. This guy, we know had the gun. But there was the other one where the guy's standing in the background and he didn't have the gun. Either that or our thought process was if he got her out to a car, he had already taken the gun off of his, his person at that point. So, but you think there's more than one. Whoops. Derek, text not talk about enough. Yeah, we agree. He's not being talked about enough. And thank you, Jenna. That is a great comment. We agree with you. How do we know Nancy wasn't killed when she was dropped off or shortly thereafter and the intruder was coming to retrieve her body to hide the murder?
Well, we don't know.
And that is a good comment.
Mm-hmm.
That is an excellent theory. Where is Nancy's passport? If criminals took her passport with them, then she'd be in Mexico. No one said if her passport is at home. Yeah, we don't know where that is. What, if anything, do you make of the new reporting in SG's book that I heard about this. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. That her siblings and cousins played a game where they staged a kidnapping and be taken to Phoenix, and Nancy would pick them up a few days later.
Yeah, I heard about it. I actually, Megyn Kelly talked about it today on her show, and that's where I heard it. It's interesting, but it's Nancy, or I'm sorry, it's Savannah and a friend or a sibling that are being kidnapped in this scenario. So it's not Nancy. It's Nancy that comes and gets Savannah and the sibling. I don't know if that's Annie or Cameron, but so it's a little different, obviously, but it's, it's kind of weird, to be frank. It's, I don't know, just another weird aspect to this case. This
case is the gift that keeps on giving in terms of weirdness. Every time, right? I mean, every day we wake up, I don't know about you, but I'm sitting in my chair at home at 2:00 in the morning, reading all the different stuff that's floating on this thing. And finally, yesterday, I said, you know what? We got to slow the pace down on this thing. Right. And even Gary, right, Bob? Gary's like, holy crap. He hits us with 50 tornado messages, text messages about, are you guys seeing this? And that, and his mind just will not shut off. Fortunately, we've been doing this a couple of weekends, and we can go, I'm going to bed. Click. I'll see what's happening in the morning. You know? And
Absolutely.
I thought you were going fly fishing. Mike's out on a boat.
Well, that's where my mind is, at least part of it.
All right, we got some more here. And thank you guys for your generosity. Okay, Scott Helmer, official. Love it. I love your, are you a musician? Interesting. Awesome. If any of them tried buying a firearm under a real name or alias, it would have triggered the system and alerted authorities. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So they already know the attempted purchase location, right? I think the answer to that is yes. Bob, am I wrong?
Yes. Yeah, most likely they know.
And that's the ATF system that we were talking about. It would have fired it up pretty quickly. And that's why we think it's weird that they're walking in there with 40 pictures. And so is there something else? You know, was the ID good enough to get past the system? Odd. Why does police report state it Saturday, January 31st at 7 p.m., not Sunday? Simple error.
Good question. I don't know. I'd want to take a look at the police report to really say much more than that.
Yeah. Unless, let's see, she got picked up at what time?
5 something.
Oh, wait. 5:32 by Uber. So that's an hour and a half. That timeline, that's a great catch. We'd have to look at that. That is a great catch. Thank you, Lee Taylor. Perhaps she was taken to another state. You would see the FBI full press right now, and the sheriff wouldn't have much. The sheriff wouldn't have an option but to hand it over.
Yeah, that is one scenario where the FBI likely would take over the case.
Yeah. So if we see that happening, then we know there's an international or a state connection to this. But right now, everybody's still on the same team, and they're in Arizona.
Or if she was taken out of the country, it would be the same thing.
Yeah, the FBI, good point, Bobby. The FBI would full press on that as well. Am I wrong to start believing that this tragedy was ever the goal, was done so well orchestrated, it's sadly going to go cold and not be solved? You know, we weren't, I haven't been convinced that this guy, you know, had the sophistication and everything to, you know what, I'm going to pull off the masterful, you know, kidnapping of an 84-year-old woman of, you know, Savannah Guthrie. I'm not going to go that far. If anything, I would lean more towards, again, don't leave the house. Somebody's connected somewhere. We've said this from day one. Everybody else is saying it now, which we appreciate, and not attributing it to its sources. But day one, low risk, probably known to the victim and the suspect. They know there's a crossover somewhere. Painter, family, pool guy, whatever. The list goes on. Mm-hmm. Acquaintances of acquaintances. Mm-hmm. Okay. Friend of friends. You know, friend of a family member friend. All of those acquaintances start to connect dots. It will not surprise, I don't think, any one of us if we wake up and say, this guy's been arrested and he knows this guy, and this guy who is connected to the house somehow. Air and date and time. There you go. Thank you, Lee. The interview and panel of guests and all Ellie are so amazing that you're the only top angle in covering it. Thank you, Jason. And thank you so much for being with us here. And your kindness and generosity, we appreciate that very much. And your your questions and conversations are always awesome. I'm worried about conviction, too many decoys. I can't disagree with that at all. I'm worried about the crime scene being tore up. And how many times have they been back there now?
Much has been said, and I don't want to pile on the sheriff too much here, but much has been said in the media about how the FBI handles public information, and you rarely get anything out of the FBI on a case. They'll tell you when they charge, they'll tell you when they make arrests and those kind of things. But in terms of details, you get very, very little when they are the lead agency of a case. And you can make a case for doing that. You could also make a case for not doing that. The FBI is a national agency, and even though they answer to all of us as taxpayers, they're not on the local level. And so the sheriff on the local level and a police chief on a local level, and even at the state level, the director of, in this case, Arizona DPS, if he were to come out and say things, it just seems to go over more with the public. But the FBI, yes, they keep their mouth shut. And, there's some benefit to that, I will say. But the people also have a right to know at least certain things, the basics, not all the details, because even the sheriff doesn't have to tell us all the details. But you can make a case for both, taking both approaches to how they handle this public information.
Yeah, it just hits the black hole sometimes, and it can disrupt because it gets misinterpreted, like Bob's talking about. And it's not that they're doing it on purpose; it just gets misinterpreted, and it just blows up. And add on all the other things. Mr. Adam Joel, thank you so much. I immediately suspected the suspect in the video is wearing a lifelike silicone mask underneath the ski mask. The features never move, and something is off about the features. Thoughts? That's an interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
Let's pull this up to that point. Yeah, almost like there's a secondary layer under here. Is that what you're thinking?
I think that's what they're saying. And, Adam is not the only one that made the point. People on the first night that we analyzed that video were making similar points as Adam. And it's a good point. I don't know. I'm not that familiar with those silicone masks. So I'm assuming they're a soft mask and not hard. But there's something under there. I do believe that this person has a beard or a full goatee, because you can see it, how full it is around the stocking, the bottom of the stocking, around the chin area and around the upper neck area. I know it's folded over in this photo, but just look how full it is around his chin. There's no definition of a chin there. Yeah, it's a little bit of a bump, but there's no chin definition there at all. And that's not because of the mask. That's because he's got a goatee or a beard, I think.
You can kind of see it here too, Bob. Down on the net, to what you're talking about, down the chin area. It looks a little fuller. Yeah, interesting. Do you think the case will go cold? I don't think so. Not with the amount of resources they have on this thing. Now, do I think it could take much more time? It could. I think the next, we're at a critical juncture right now.
Not that these cases are alike other than the abduction part, but the Elizabeth Smart case was solved when she was recovered after 8 or 9 months being gone. And frankly, I thought she had been killed. And a lot of people thought that. So she was recovered, and I believe she's doing relatively well in life now. But she was missing for 9 months, and abducted, and we knew that. So
Yeah, Elizabeth says, how do you reconcile the blood entryway and the fact that the front door was locked? I doubt she let the perp in. If she got to the door, that screen gate is locked, force of habit to lock door. If second perp was a family member, you know, that's a great comment. And this is why we started talking about this again tonight, even though the sheriff is saying one thing. We're not saying that they haven't been cleared. We're just saying there are still some investigative steps that need to take place. And it needs to be cleared up with the public. And
the other,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Yeah, the other thing too is it's still possible that blood was staged. I know some people are saying no because there's that exasperated blood on the on the tiles, but there still is a possibility that the blood was staged.
Let's see here. JSWI 87. Could clearing the family public could be a tactic to make certain ones feel more comfortable, maybe easier to monitor?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. It's usually not a good idea to do that, because if you suspect that the family is in play here, then it's better just to come out and say, look, this investigation's continuing. We're looking at all parties. And because once the sheriff said nobody's been cleared, he should have just stayed on that lane. Even though the public was saying, you know, it's this guy, it's that guy, it's that, you know, no, you don't get there until you know for a fact, because now he's kind of walking it back a little with, well, I'm kind of meaning that, but you know, it's just cruel to say things to these people. Well, we're in the 21st century, 2026, and social media is a blood sport. It is an absolute blood sport. And so, you know, you just have to learn how to, it's like the guy spitting on you in the back seat of your patrol car. You know, you just got to put a spit bag on him and drive and leave it alone. I believe the guy at Nancy's was the hitman hired by, SNL. So much learned on every show. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. And we thank you because you are here all the time, J.E. Lane. Number one. You are number one. You're awesome. The path we choose. The FBI has not sealed Nancy's mailbox and redirected her mail to them. Anyone can tamper with her mail or send something, including the kidnappers. We agree. Bob, you were going to say something else?
No, maybe somebody in the investigation will see that. It's a great comment, and go to the post office and have their mail held.
Loving nannies. Love that picture. Very cute with those two kitties. Let's see. What if A&T knew Nancy had Bitcoin and planned it? That is a great comment. That's a great comment. I am so tired of this case. Every victim deserves the same reporting, public engagement, and light. We agree. In fact, we said that the other night, didn't we, Bobby?
We did. Yeah, there are lots of victims out there, and this is, of course, getting all the play, and it's unfortunate that others can't get this type of coverage because we would find a lot more people, I believe.
Yeah. Sasaga, thank you. That kind of game is bizarre. Find Cousin Terry. I'm assuming the kidnap game. Yeah. And that would be the kind of loop that we would want to chase, right? To your point. We'd want to circle those people up and say, let's talk. I read the son-in-law has a gambling debt. Well, that could be problematic. That's not good if that's the case, because that could be a driver towards, financial problem. Did the sheriff clarify if they are certain that Nancy actually made it back inside her house or the house scene staged? Was the blood staged? I think
We don't. Yeah, we don't know, and no, he did not clarify it.
And is that a possibility? And the answer is yes. Keep it on the table. Don't take it off the table right now. Okay. Thank you for your kindness and your generosity. Already the local gun show held same day Nancy went missing. Okay. That would be an interesting piece of that puzzle. If the bad guy got that gun, and maybe that's why he doesn't know what he's doing with it. And he got it that day at the gun show. Interesting point.
Mhm.
You guys come up with some great points. We so appreciate you. Chuck, son-in-law Feldman just showed up in Tucson 17 days after NG went missing. Odd. This highly paid and connected political operative knows all about the Clintons. Is he an extortion target? The politics in this thing could also send another lane. To be honest with you, you know who you would sick on that? I know the sheriff's department's not going to chase that, but that's a good point. It will be the feds that will chase that piece of the puzzle. Okay. That's what they'll do. But that's, do you keep it in the conversation behind the scenes? Absolutely. Is it a possibility? You just don't know until you can say for sure, okay, we've got solid video, we've got solid car, we've got her in the car, yada, yada, yada. And you connect those dots. That's why it's critical to find out why they impounded Annie's car and if they've released it. If they have not released it, they are not chasing the Clintons. Okay? They are chasing something in that car. That's what they're doing. And that I can assure you of that. But that's a good point. Put link address in my second message to police report. Okay. I'm going to have to go back and find it, but we'll try to do that for you. Let's see here. Fellas, great show. 2 criminals for 2 different pairs of shoes. I already called FBI top line, different color sole stripe hugs. Thank you. Thank you so much for laying that out. We were thinking about that the other night as well. So thank you for pegging those shoes. Has anyone considered the kidnappers went to the wrong house? Maybe they were meant to grab someone else, mixed up address or properties.
That's a possibility, but it's a very, very slim possibility. And those that have been watching me on Chris's show here for a little while know that I'm not much into coincidence. So I doubt that, but again, it's a possibility, but a slight one.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah. To Bob's point, is it possible? Absolutely. 1,000%. Probable? Probably not. But we always keep things on the table. And thank you, DB Bentley, PI. Boom. Could it be possible, since the neighbor was a gem dealer, was the hit meant for him and they got the wrong house? The huge gem show starting. Wow. That's an angle.
I hadn't heard anything about a gem dealer neighbor.
Thank you, Mama of 3. Okay, your mom's a genius. Love it. Woman of Steel, yep. Thank you so much for becoming a member. Well, I think Sheriff knows family member was involved with trying to play it cool while they gather more evidence, scent, and surveillance. Yeah. Well,
Good possibility.
Good possibility. Let's see how he comes out of this in the long run. One more. Scott, welcome back, bro, and you don't ever worry about it. How about Trump's comment on February 6th and 7th that some things from this case will come to a conclusion reasonably soon? I wish the politicians would just stay home. You know, all of them. All of them.
I think the president used the word solution in his comments, didn't he? Said
Yeah.
there's a solution.
Just,
Which-
you know, Sheriff, no, not the sharpest tool in the shed. More of a comment. Thank you. Maybe dark, but what happens to body if killed? You mean if it's laid out in the desert within 4 days, it will disintegrate. The animals will take care of it, and you'll just be. Right now, the coyotes will come in, and sometimes they'll eat the entire bones. Okay, maybe not the mandible. They won't eat the mandible. Coyotes don't like them, or pigs don't like them. But they like to spread those bones. Small rats will come in and spread, the smaller bones back to their nest, that kind of stuff. So, yeah. Still no threat to the rest of the public. Nanos.
Yeah, has he said that recently? I haven't heard him say that recently, but he did say it early on.
Well, you got an 84-year-old woman out there who's disappeared, so can't take that off the table. That it could be a threat. And you got to be honest with the public. You got to tell them at this point, we don't have a suspect. At this point, we've been working this thing over and over, so please be cautious. Lock your doors at night and just go down the list. Right or wrong, Bob?
Absolutely right.
So that's a good comment. Thank you for making that comment. Maybe Bob should run for sheriff in Pima County. What do you guys all think? I think he'd be a great sheriff. He was an undersheriff in Wyoming. You're not done. You're not done. You still got it in you. You'd be an amazing sheriff over there.
Now, the baloney patch on my head, which most of you can't see, is growing by the day. So I'm way too old for that.
You got a huge cranium. Oh. Let's see.
Besides, there's not. I don't think that there's very good fly fishing in Pima County.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't work.
Yeah, that's true. What is your theory on the blood stopping where it did? We know there was no vehicle right at the front. What would make the blood drop stop there? Well, two things. If she was wrapped up in something and there are two people carrying her out, they may have gotten to a situation where they could have hit another surface like dirt, sand, anything like that. And if there's wind, it could cover that type of evidence. 99% of the time, no, but there's always that possibility. If there were rain or anything like that in the evening, moisture would dissipate the blood. But that's when you would want to come in at night and run an alternate light source, which I have not seen happen. I don't think the feds did that either. You'd want to run that light up that sidewalk because there is a blood trail on that sidewalk, and it does appear to be leaving the house. And then the next piece of that possibility is staging. So those are all possibilities. Per the mask under the mask suggestion, I think the perp might be wearing a domino mask that just goes around the eyes only under the ski mask. Interesting. Hey, Bob, I don't know if you remember back when in Jeffrey Dahmer's house, when they opened the fridge, they found human pizzas in there with a bunch of human noses on it? Were you aware of that?
No,
You know what kind of
No.
pizza? You know what kind of pizzas they were?
no, you're going to tell me.
They were Domino's pizzas.
You can tell it's getting late.
Okay, hang on. They got a couple more going here, cooking. Bob and Chris, you're such a good team. Composure, logic, and ability to speak kindly are so underrated. Thank you so much for your kindness. That Bob is a great man.
Thank you for the compliment.
We do appreciate that. I believe they 187 Nancy at home, then removed her. They had all night to do it. I also believe someone close to her did this. Thank you, Shauna. Shauna, love your picture, girl. You're looking great in that picture.
It's very possible, Shauna.
Watching from Carlsbad. Boom. Do you think the bite light flashlight is unique and could be specific to narrow it down? Thanks for what you do. Jim L 2595. Bobby,
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
what do you think? The bite light, they could narrow that down. Yeah, that seemed like a unique feature to this crime.
Yep. Good question.
Yeah, I think they can chase that. Good point.
Yeah, absolutely. They are not common at all.
This old nurse, thank you, 1521, not only for your service, but for your kindness here. Every criminal has grandmothers. What kind of sicko steals a nana with heart and mobility problems? We can't disagree with you, young lady. Thank you for bringing that up. Saga's back. Why no volunteers called out for foot searches? No cadaver dogs searching desert. I've never seen a missing person case where they didn't physically search for the missing person.
Well, they did that initially in the first, and we're not sure the duration, but it's most likely somewhere around 6 to 8 to 12 hours after the initial deputies responded to the scene. So they did it initially. Now, if you're referring to in the last few days, that's a good question, although we don't know for sure. They may have deployed their search and rescue team out to far out from Nancy's home into the desert to look for her. We just don't know. They haven't said. And frankly, that's the first question I've heard with that question. Yes. First time I've heard that question.
Thank you, Saga. We keep coming back. Great questions.
Mm-hmm.
Silent after ransom, key signal. Very interesting. Good point, Amanda. Very interesting. You're right. They've gone radio silence, haven't they? And now you got the second guy throwing all these notes into TMZ. What do you guys think about that? That's kind of weird. I don't mind Nancy getting coverage, but I don't understand FBI giving $100,000 compared to $50,000 for Sebastian Rogers. Yeah, right. Good point.
It's fair criticism.
Yep, I am quilting. Fair criticism is right. Right hand looks contracted, maybe injury or CP. Doesn't open fingers. You know, that's very interesting you said that because Karen, my wife, has said that he has that left-leaning posture. See that? And she thought he had a shoulder injury. And I thought he's looking through the window, but it could be a combination of both because the side of that door has two windows on either side of it. Interesting point. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Let's see. The gem dealer was seen taking boxes out of his house next day on camera. Makes it plausible. Tango Alpha Mike. Thank you for your service, sir. We can see your helicopter there on your shot. Appreciate you. That's going to be an interesting angle, Bob. We got to look into that one as a group. We got to think about that one.
Absolutely. Yeah, I hadn't heard it.
Let's see here. Agents at neighbor's house today with ladders inspecting cameras. He also worked with the 10 Canadian miners that got murdered 3 weeks ago in Sinaloa. Huh. I think the biggest break will come from the footage from the back Nest cameras. Let's hope Google can recover those files. Yeah, we agree with you. We think inside the house, if they had a couple of cameras in that house, which she did apparently, because remember early on, remember the sheriff said the house, both of those cameras were disabled. And we now know the suspect definitely did the one on the porch, so we have to assume why wouldn't he do the one in the house? Bob, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. They definitely have more footage. I will say that, and so we'll see if we see more of it. If the longer this goes, the more likely we are to see more footage.
So side moms, Sydney's mom, my bad. Sydney's mom. Maybe Nancy went to the door the same time the guy was going around back, then her door, ran back and door hit Nancy's head, just speculating. Thanks, Bob. And thanks, Chris and Bob. Well, thank you. That's that's another possibility. Deb Longo, what do you think about Nancy's political organization? She was part of her college colleague verified. Could she have known something? Again, go ahead, Bobby. What were you going to say?
Well, just make the point that the investigators are looking into her entire life, and they're doing a complete background scrub of Nancy. They're talking to her former colleagues at the university. They're talking to everybody in their life, as many as they can, to try and get information. So if something like that was going on or is going on, it could surface in those interviews.
Okay. Shade thrower 316, love it. He's throwing shade on us here. This is awesome. I think the 2 text messages, and this is about our guy in LA, were to help them confirm that it was the right person and not spam. And I believe the phone call plan was to simply answer the question verbally and hang up. Really interesting thought. I love the way you're thinking, bro. Seriously, keep throwing that shade around. Seriously, because we're not out of that box with that guy yet either. I mean, meaning what we would do in a real life investigation in terms of if it was our case, we'd have papers up on the wall and we would still have that guy over here. And we would try to connect the link analysis until we say, you know what? Okay, he's out. We're done. Tear it off the wall, go to the next one. Okay, that's how it works. Does the whole country implement Bardol methods? No, they don't, and they should. Yeah, Francine Bardol, she's the inventor of the Bardol method, and it's called an MVAC. She's taken DNA off of rocks, and I've had her on my show many times. You can go in the playlist and watch her, and I'll have her back on this one too. I'll try to get her. In fact, I'll reach out to her this week. I would like both of your opinions on one TMZ when I heard yesterday, even it's very unlikely, the letter wouldn't reading. They told me to shut up, relive who the teller is, therefore posing risk to possible hostage. Thank you. Bob, is it a risk to read that letter on the world TV with her still out there?
It could be if it's legit, but quite frankly, I have a lot of doubt that it's legit.
But I'm with you as well. I don't think they should be reading these letters. Mm-hmm. They should be taking this information and forwarding it 100% to the FBI and let it go. Because if they are legit, to your point, we're both in agreement that she could be in danger and it needs to stop. But we can't control that, unfortunately. Thank you, Forget Me Nots. Love that. Why not trace Walmart ski mask gun search? The mask and gun covert most items are purchased at Walmart. Yes, they are. They're down that lane right now. I guarantee it. They're waiting for their headquarters to probably through their legal department to kick stuff back. Bob.
Yeah, you know, Walmart has an excellent security group throughout the country. They're very, very good. A lot of them are former law enforcement. Some are former FBI, local law enforcement, etc. So they're very good at what they do, and I guarantee you they're working very closely with the agents to try and identify through their computer system and their camera system who purchased those items, all of those items. So, but it takes a while. It's not going to happen in short order.
Clemson, love your pup. Haven't heard a request for trail cam image. I live in rural South Carolina on a farm. Lucky. No street lights on our road. Our deer trail cams pick up everything. Yeah, I'm sure they're chasing those things down too, and we probably don't know about them yet. Perp keeps right hand close. That hand also closed while he hits doorbell camera. Uses left hand to push plants against camera. Right leg seems stiff.
Good observation. Yeah, we caught that the other night, and a lot of the viewers did as well.
Reminds me of the movie Gone Girl. Rebecca Cam, thank you for that comment. I heard the reward was raised to 200. I still believe there's multiple individuals involved, probably over the border. Nathaniel, NAJ band. Oh, I see you're picking a getter. Love it. Love it. Love it. Go listen to the NAJ band, everybody. I wonder if they looked up Mary Carilla. She's the one who replaced Savannah for the opening of the Winter Olympics. Get Smart Agent 99. Aha, electric grass. Remember that? 99, do you have a hairpin, Max? No, Max, I don't. Well, I do. He pulled one out, and then he slipped. He goes, rubber garbage.
What a great show that was.
Oh, my gosh. We miss those days. Cactus and snakes would hinder search party. Yes. And those little burrs for the puppies. For the search dogs, they have to put mittens on them. Those little burrs get in their paws. You can forget it. Watching from Australia, the case is mind-blowing. Thank you, Natalie Meyer, 9017. Top of the morning in Australia. As Bob would say, put a shrimp on the babby. Thank you for being with us on this program. We appreciate you so much. Is AG and TC married? Their property tax showed them listed them with separate names. You know what? That's a great question. I don't know if they have ever been confirmed that they are just not cohabitants. Most professional SAR ops, which is search and rescue, last about 2 weeks for missing persons before search is called off, not 1 day. I used to do SAR. Thank you, Sasa.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Sasa.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think the difference, though, in this case is it's very obvious that this is a crime and it's not a walk away at-risk adult out there missing. So I think that's the difference in this case. Now, as I said earlier, they may have deployed the search and rescue team far out from the crime scene area to look for her, and that could be going on as we speak.
The Angel Rock with Worley Pavin. Thank you for being with us for 20 months. I'm so grateful. We We appreciate you so much. Love TR. Thank you for sharing expertise with us. Well, thank you for sticking around with us all this time. We've been doing this 5 years now on this channel. 5 years. That's a long time. But we're going to do another 5 years, if not longer. I got to get to my goal is 1 million. Once I hit 1 million subscribers, and you guys can help me tonight. If you've not subscribed, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, which helps the algorithm, which helps my channel and our channel grow as a whole, because that allows great guys like Bob, all of our friends who come to here and give of their time. It helps them as well. We appreciate you, because you can see a guy like this over here. He's been there, done that. And it's imperative that we are able to give back some of the things that we've experienced in our careers. There's a lot of young officers can learn the stuff too. We're still learning. So it can be perpetual. I'm late to the chat. YouTube was out. My question is why the sheriff specifically said last night no one was cleared, but this morning said the Guthries were cleared. Seems strange to me. Deb, we talked about that earlier. You're going to have to do the rerun on that one, but we had the same question and we ran a couple of things just before you got here early on. So if you wouldn't mind doing that in a little bit. And yeah, the YouTube did have a glitch earlier on. So Donna, wrong house. The neighbor was a gun dealer, not Jim. Okay. The dealer was seen taking out a van load of boxes 6 days ago. Definitely something I'm sure they are going to chase down. CVP 4860. Doormat and foliage was confirmed by 857 Tucson that it's still there today. Wild to me. Wild to me too. Bob?
Yeah, unfortunately it's been compromised. That doesn't mean has no evidentiary value, but it should have been collected from the get-go, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it should be, even though it's compromised, like Bob said, it should be sitting in an evidence locker somewhere, because the defense is going to ask, did you pick up that mat?
This is a great question. Best in class 23. So is the sheriff the only one that can make the decision to be the spokesperson? To answer that question, yes, in this case. He has the right of refusal. He is the top person in the department. He's the elected sheriff of Pima County, and therefore he can make that decision. And there's a second part of the question, if you can go back.
Oh, that's
all right.
Oh, no, can someone intervene was the second part.
Well, that's a kind of a quagmire, and I don't really want us to opine on that. There is a process, but it would require the removal of the sheriff, and that's not likely to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, like a recall, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, somebody needs to utilize they actually Clemson, go Clemson, by the way, go Tigers. They actually did bring these cameras in. Okay, they did bring them in. And by the way, for the record, Clemson there, Karen and I used to live in Mount Pleasant, just outside of Charleston. So we're like fugitives. We move around so much because the FBI's been on our butt, for so many years. You probably see my picture at the post office. So take a look down there on the wall. Anyway, Bob's not laughing, so that wasn't funny.
Oh, I was just reading some of the comments.
Okay. Our site's monitored about this crime. I saw a hateful remark directed to Savannah on the other site. Yes, especially under these circumstances. And I don't want to give away too much on that. Do you not find it odd that behind the porch guy, the house at the T Road is lit up at 2 a.m.? Yeah, across the way there. Yeah, that was really interesting, wasn't it? Because that's a no light area for the observatory. Yet at 2 o'clock in the morning, way across the way, you see the lights on. in the background. That right there, you can see the lights on.
Mm-hmm.
What a great comment, old grandma. You're not an old grandma. You're a smart grandma. We need more smart grandmas. That's awesome. Great point. Yes, that is odd. That is very odd. Thank you for your comment. Milwaukee, Wisconsin residents, Cheddarhead. Very familiar with Dahmer case, unfortunately. Very honored to have found your group. The interaction you have with your guests and members is outstanding. Thank you, Wendy. I bet you wear that hat too, don't you? Do you wear the cube? Tell me you do. Well, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I would say go Green Bay. Is it possible that someone in the Guthrie family, i.e. Tommaso, has threatened the sheriff to ensure he rules him out as a suspect? Bobby, you've been in that position. What do you think?
Well, is it possible? It could be possible. It's unlikely, in my opinion. I don't think there were any threats. I think the sheriff is personalizing this and felt an obligation to rule out the Guthrie family, and so he did. And I think it was a wrong move personally, especially at this point in the case. But that's the sheriff's prerogative, and he exercised it. So it is what it is, as the saying goes.
Bonnie, creative gift ideas, 6622. I think more search needs to be done in Mexico. You know what they're going to do? They're going to run some things. They've got capabilities, but I don't want to say it out loud here because we don't want to compromise Miss Nancy. So but that is a good point. Okay?
I will just add very quickly that even though it's another country and, there's a reputation that, the Mexican authorities don't cooperate, but actually they do pretty well. And I can guarantee you that there's a lot of cooperation and dialogue between the Mexican law enforcement just across the border and law enforcement in Arizona.
Yeah. And, our agency, we used to donate all our old leather gear and uniforms and stuff to the cops down there back in the day when they did, they didn't have anything. But to Bob's point, if they get hot onto something, they do cooperate. But, that's a good, solid comment. And thank you. Marriage license 2006. So they could be in play here with Annie and her husband.
Good catch.
Do you find it strange that as soon as Nano Clear's family returns from Italy just a little while ago? Oh, the husband? I don't know.
We don't know if he was in Italy, if he's ever left. He's obviously laying low, and there may be good reason for that. Maybe he just doesn't want to be in the fray here, but I don't know that he ever went to Italy. And I asked the question. I had heard it too, and I asked that question, but yet to get a plausible answer.
Cali girl. Shaka. Any chance of Nancy been taken away in a golf cart to a car parked nearby? Interesting. You mean like it'd be little quieter, right? That late at night? That's an interesting point. Is it possible? Anything's possible, and we love how you guys are thinking. This is how it works. You think outside of the box, and that's how you catch people, catch bad guys. Do you think they will be doing reverse DNA to match family member possibly in the system and start from there? I believe that will be a strong possibility. Bob?
Agree.
Bill, Agent Real Life, thank you. Do you ever get invited into an active case? Yes. I just helped Idaho in the Michael Vaughn case. I was embedded with the Fruitland Police Department for 4 months. And that was just recently. And I'm still working other cases. Plant Lady, I love all the deep thinking that is done here. Thank you. Well, thank you for being with us for 32 months. Man. If A&T aren't married, that would make the sheriff clearing statement read differently. Good point. Sweater weather. I love your moniker. Oh my gosh, that's hysterical. Sweater weather. Love it. Good point. Boom, pow, zoink. Can you both tell us what you really think happened here? Maria Thomas.
At the appropriate time.
We haven't left the house. Bobby, agreed?
Yeah.
Somebody has crossed into that home that crossed into Nancy's life at some point. We don't know who that person could be. We have questions about the timeline. We have questions about who last saw her alive, who transported her. We have questions about the point of entry, and we have questions about the interior of that house and the crime scene. So there's a lot of data we don't have answers to, but I wouldn't leave the house yet and chase rabbit holes. Not yet. Now this other stuff will play into it, like the other search warrants and all this other stuff. That could be because of a footprint on digital. That could be phone numbers that are phones that came into the arena or into the search geographic area. And they have to check the boxes. Yeah, we checked that out. We checked that out. Yeah, we stopped the DoorDash guy, 60 miles out of Tucson because he showed up in the circle. My father, Stan Brown, Homicide, California. Thank you. Love. Do either of you have a picture yet you cannot say? Rapid Lighting, 28. Bless your father. Bless you for being a homicide daughter because you lived with him and you also saw him out for weeks at a time. So you're a great person as well. I think we just kind of gave you the Reader's Digest version of what we think the picture could be. Roll Tide, go Bama. Thank you, Sarah. Boom. Bob Saban is a great coach, one of the best in the world. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member, Kelly. Okay, we're almost there, Bob. We're getting there. The sheriff, Nano, noted he has not dealt with anything like this mishandling of evidence. Well, hopefully, right? We'll give him a little grace on that stuff. There are some things, we went over without, kicking a dead horse, but he needs to just zip it, like Bob said, and hand it to his PIO. And then have a daily briefing and feed the beast, feed the media. Bring them to the station, keep them there, not in front of the house, so you can get to work. I mean, right now it's like, pizza's delivered. Wow. Nancy must have made it home after dinner. Her pacemaker was connected to her phone before the kidnapping, and her phone would not have shown her location. Carrie Gold. That's a solid observation. I think the kidnappers crave media attention and also watch YouTube live streams about the case and have interacted in the live chats. Thoughts? E-Peace Now 2023. Hopefully you're not involved. That is a possibility. Always. Building construction going on in the background. Yeah, the Zodiac watched the news. You know who else watched the news? A guy I interviewed by the name of Wesley Allen Dodd. They sent me up to Walla Walla State Prison in 91, just before they hung him. Or it was 91 or 92. You can go watch the interview. It's in my playlist. I put a piece of it in there. If one thing he told me is every time the sheriff got on the station, the TV station, he knew exactly what they were doing. Great point. Can you explain why the media is putting so much hope on DNA testing for a glove when there's no proof it's even connected to the Nancy's house?
It's easy. And we have come to rely, and DNA is obviously a great tool for us. Early on in my career, we didn't have DNA. And So to have it today is wonderful. It has solved so many cases, not just murders, so many cases. So it's a godsend. But sometimes the media tends to put a little too much emphasis on it. It's not going to solve everything, and they're just focused on it. They have tunnel vision sometimes with this DNA stuff. So I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, great point. Great question. Timeline mistakes always expose lies. Absolutely. They always do. They need you guys on the case. Hire Chris and Bob. Thanks. Again, go listen to NAJ Band. Love that guy. Band member Walt Consalves is public defender. Yeah, federal public defender, actually. Good point. Thank you so much. Haley, thank you again. Sorry, I just hit the wrong one twice. Some people do stage their own disappearances. Yeah, typically not 84-year-olds. So typically. Thank you, sir. Were the cadaver dogs used inside the house? That's a great question. I don't have that answered.
I don't either.
I need to check up on that. Thank you, Kike. In Australia, an 85-year-old man alone was just kidnapped, wrong target. Kidnappers text the family, say, should we off him? It happens. Sharon Howard, yeah, absolutely. It can happen. It can happen. And thank you, Mama. I get you don't want to put forward a single hypothesis, but what hypothesis do you think makes the most sense or the highest probability?
We'll get to that at some point.
Yeah. At the highest probability is what I have said, what we have said, I have said, others have said. At this point, like Koberger's, like the Idaho 4, don't leave the apartment. The suspect knows the neighborhood. I did a whole thing on the suspect knows the neighborhood, and the suspect knows these victims, meaning he had studied them. You don't show up at 2 o'clock in the morning randomly and take an 84-year-old woman out of the house. It does not happen. In fact, the statistics are so low, they don't keep statistics on it. They keep statistics on children, but not senior citizens who are kidnapped out of their homes. There is no data on it. None. That's how rare this is. So that tells us even a lower point. You got to stay with the house and your answers are in that crime scene. And you don't leave it. You don't chase rabbit holes. You don't chase YouTube. You don't chase social media. And the sheriff should just shut that valve off in his head and stay focused in the investigation. Stay off of the cameras. Stay off of YouTube. Stay off of Twitter. Stay off of TikTok, Facebook. Stay off of all of it. Every once in a while, you have a press conference with your PIO. You bring the beast to the station, i.e. the media, and you let them set up and camp out at your department. Because when something big happens, you're going to bring that suspect back to your agency, and they're going to get the perp walk, and they're going to get the photograph, and they're going to get the comment from the sheriff right then and there. Until that time, you have camp media in front of that house. And let me give you one of the quotes that I thought was really hysterical today. Oh my gosh, 2 men have shown up. Here's another one. Holy cow, pizza at the door. Breaking news. Pool man pulls in. There's a gardener here. As Bob said, what next? Ice cream trucks? You need to pull it all back into the sheriff's department. Let them camp out there. Remember, Bob, when Matthew Checky died? Right? We had 18, 19, 20 satellite trucks from around the world. Okay? When I walked out of that bathroom and I was a case agent, I go up to my boss and I say, that's your problem. Okay. Never was I in front of a camera in any way, shape, or form. Our chief wasn't even in front of the camera. The captain carried that burden. His name was Dave Herring. He carried that burden. And that's what the sheriff should do. All right, we're almost done here. We got a couple more. Thank you guys for becoming members. So appreciate you. Who has the pool cleaned at a crime scene? Exactly. Yeah, that's the point. We agree. Thank you, Harris. You guys are awesome. Let's see, garage, have entry door, rear unlocked entry. Good point. We discussed that the other night as well. Could the family have gone through that door? That is a possibility, and that would also explain the missing data. The sheriff hasn't come out and said that yet. He's given all the points, and he's not said how the family got into the house. He hasn't said that. He needs to do that. He needs to do that. Okay. Thank you, Mama. Thank you. Thank you. Matsushi. When the perp bent down to grab Green, his sleeve pulled up. Is it possible arm hair DNA fell on the ground? Would it remain, you mean like a touch DNA situation? Yeah, well, that's why we were kind of surprised they didn't even collect some of that foliage out or the leaves or anything like that. Because the other thing that you can do with that, let's say there's a transfer from his gloves to her, okay? Now you can put him at the scene just by the glove. If you have the same brush on a glove that he threw out the window, and it happens to go back and be the same stuff at her house. You know what we used to do is take the air filters out of cars if there was a body dump, because you can put the suspect at the scene because of the button. You get a botanist to come in, you pull all that shrubbery around where the body is, and now you can match it up. So just by the fact they left that brush there, hypothetically, hopefully they collected it. I'm not going to hold my breath, but when they put the tent up, that was a good sign. Hopefully they did some brush pickup, because if they found something, i.e. the glove that he used to pick up that brush to cover the camera, maybe there's transfer of that onto the glove. And maybe if he transfers that, because everything that goes into that house stays in that house or goes on the victim. Maybe it's in the bed. Maybe it's, maybe they have something like that in the house. And if she was brought out, God forbid, she's not with us, maybe there's that transfer on her. Let's pray that that's a possibility. Audit cable feeds of people in an area that have news 24/7 before and after abduction. Most want to have news on all day, could help point to a cohort. Okay, good point. Can you discuss how to protect your house, yourself in a home invasion? With all the publicity, it would be great to learn something about prevention. The second, you know why? Yamamoto, after they attacked in Pearl Harbor, went to the emperor of Pearl Harbor and said, and the emperor in Japan said to Yamamoto, who was the general, who, by the way, studied in the United States before World War II. And the Emperor of Japan asked him, should we land in America? Just keep moving. And Yamamoto stopped him and said, no. And he said, why? He's because of what they call the Second Amendment. Every door and every window, we will fight them. And when they landed in Alaska and the Aleutian Islands, the Japanese, people forget this in World War II, they didn't get far. That's my discussion on home invasions.
Some of those gun turret platforms are still up there in the Aleutians.
They're still there.
Yeah. Just the platform, of course, not the barrel and not the
I'm
the
stuck.
barrels.
Am I not wanting to fold up on my gut instinct, so patiently waiting? My thoughts and prayers are for Nancy, Savannah, and Charles. Once again, thank you. Anna Janet Foss, and I love your Native American indigenous woman sign there. That's another problem in this country. We have 6,500 Native American women who have evaporated. And in Canada, it's at least that amount. This is an epidemic as well. So thank you for your comment and thank you for your kindness. Let's not forget them. Whoever removed Nancy from the house was inside the house. There's DNA, no matter how small it is, inside the house. Yes. Lullo, 1787. Yes, we think that as well. The sheriff has said it. Yeah. Okay. Could they lie and say no hit in CODIS? Debbie, Tom Heartbeat, Soul Stains. I don't think they would go out on that one. Do you, Bob?
No, I don't. That's, the sheriff and others would risk their credibility in doing that. I don't think they're going to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, we want to thank everybody for being here on this live tonight and running with us. We'll be back as things continue to unfold with the rest of the crew as well. And until then, we are grateful for each and every one of you and for your kindness and your consideration to follow us. We have one request. Please hit the thumb and the subscribe button if you're new to our channel. We are grateful if you would do that. And then share this out on all of your social media platforms. But until then, till we meet again, aloha, as they say in Hawaii, aloha oi, be akamai, which means pay attention to things around you and continue to take care of one another. We are all in this together and we're all seeing the same things that you're seeing. So let's see it all together. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thanks. Aloha.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze, some fresh air to put my mind at ease. No cares. You wanna come with me? Me and you go to our favorite tree. Are you ready now? We jump on a plane now. We're taking away. Yeah, we're taking away. Don't hesitate now. we're taking away, yeah, we're taking away. We'll never come down, we're going away, yeah, we're going away, you and me. Feeling the sun on my face in a while.